talking about Mbappe. There was the other big tall guy in the midfield that really stood out for you. Just talked about that. Pablo was wonderful today and continued being a wonderful example of composure and really intelligence in terms of the way that he played. And they came up against a team that we know Uruguay was an incredibly good defensive team. And a couple of mistakes. We talked about set pieces all along. First two goals in, and then with an uncharacteristic mistake against France. This was a wonderful performance. It's Uruguay. Okay, yes, Cavani changes it a lot, but ultimately they were wrong chances going on in this match, but the French were in control. They definitely improved from the defensive side. The squad has been more solid, giving away more space. Definitely, picking up the benefit of the set piece that they're keeping in front. It was one of the two. So we're at the not really better. I think they deserve to win. There wasn't much more that Uruguay could have done.
Uruguay's solid break right now. Immensely, I thought Suarez was left quite isolated. Suarez didn't step up to the mark and try and replace the man there. But I just think that mistake by Gorgi Salah, not the stopping out of this side, and it's really hard to take when that mistake happens like that, to get yourself back in the game when you have got one of your main strikers. It really affected Uruguay, especially in that second period. They really struggled offensively.
It's obviously you said that error, but that save from Lloris completely changed the complexion of the game. That goes in, and it's a completely different game. Wonderful save to get down with his right hand and keep that from going in. And now you're going in 1-0 as opposed to tied up in the momentum. 44th minute, one of the only scoring the same in the tournament. After just 4 minutes after Rafael Varane gave the French the lead. Speaking of the French players, the defense improved today. How so?
Well, I think they understood. 2 goals from Argentina, and a team that was absolutely nice in great shape. Because they do as a coach to analyze every match, and I think they improved and it was much more solid. They were playing close to each other with defense and midfield. I thought they were a little bit too low at the beginning, but afterwards they were a little bit higher, and that really helped them, to have control defensively. It really good.
As they always do, this terrorizing the midfield and just winning balls left and right, keeping control, filling those pockets, covering for players. It enables all the other players to do what they do so well. Such an important piece of this puzzle. Conte came into this game having run 25.5 miles in his first 4 games. So curious to see what his numbers will be today. He had a team high 224 passes coming in and playing every minute. So France, once again, moves on to the final 4. Only one South American side left. It's Brazil, and they're in action next. First Belgium.
The 2018 FIFA World Cup on FS1 is sponsored by Amazon Echo and by Volkswagen. Choose your team and jump on the wagon.
We service this tower all winter. It provides coverage from Richardson Highway up along the Panama River. We check it constantly to make sure all components are performing at their best, so there's no interruptions of service. Because around these parts,
you don't have a computer?
Stay abreast of what's going on in the world.
Drivers need to access road information or even a call for help. A good signal is the lifeline.
This is where I'm sitting. That's where you're
You
sitting.
usually sit over here.
You gotta adapt, man. I worry about your adaptability. Well, shit.
See, 1 minute to spare.
That's how you like to live your life, huh? Hasn't gone up yet.
It's ready to go. It's in the chamber.
It is in the chamber.
Whoa, what happened to all the oh, they're over there in a piece of furniture.
How you like that?
I guess I like it.
You can take some time to think about it. You don't have to rush to a judgment right now.
Wait, are we live?
We live in like 30 seconds.
Close the door to the bathroom.
That's the utility room.
Oh.
Close the door to the bathroom though, too. Shut down the ambient, constant gardening noise in my neighborhood. There we go.
Are people weighing in right now? Is that a thing that's happening?
If you wrote a computer, you could check. Maybe you should use that computer right there.
Well, how will I know?
Twitter, where people talk about their weigh-ins.
I don't have Twitter on my phone.
You what?
I took all the social media apps off my phone.
Was this like a thing that happened where you needed to make a change in your life?
I took them off about a month ago just to see how it would go. So far, it's the greatest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from right now when I could use it to follow the weigh-ins, but
I thought you were saying aside from right now, this is the greatest thing you've ever done.
it's on the list. It's definitely on the list.
9 viewers. We're live.
There we are. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Here we are for the Ultimate Fighter Season 484 live finale / UFC 226 Brunch of Champions.
We were just talking about how Chad took all the social media apps off his phone.
Greatest thing I've ever done. Taking them off my phone.
Let's talk about what apps you do have left on your phone, though.
Oh, I have plenty. Do you want to know?
So this was not just like to limit distractions in your life?
Well, I don't use any of these for distractions. They're tools, Ben.
Okay.
These applications are tools. For instance, I have JotNot,
What the fuck is that?
which you can use to take a photo with your phone and turn it into a PDF.
Okay, that actually does sound like something I want.
I use it all the time. I have the iTalk app,
Okay,
which
that's
you can use to record conversations.
Is that the WWE?
Yep, WWE Network, right there on the old phone.
Tools, he says.
Tools. I guess I still have Instagram, but it's just hooked up to the Treasure State Wrestling Instagram account.
Yeah, you don't even use Instagram. You're too old.
That's true. Fantasy baseball.
Naturally. The local bus system app?
Yep. Haven't used that one in a while.
Really?
But it's still there.
It's useful. They show you on the map where the little bus is, and it's pretty accurate.
I got the stocks app where I can track all my stocks and my bonds,
Yeah.
how everything's performing.
You're really making me believe that that's something that you do.
Enough of that, though. Let's cut to the chase. I brought a bag full of donuts.
Only the finest store-bought donuts for us, I see.
Well, I didn't have time to make us a mix and match dozen. So I brought 6 old-fashioned glazed. Put those right there for later.
There's a Krispy Kreme on the way to my house. I'm just going to say that. I'm just going to drop that out there for everybody.
And I brought 6 maple glazed also. So you
Bullshit.
go ahead and...
This is bullshit, but I'm going to eat an old-fashioned anyway because, you know what? It's too early in the day for me to let Chad get me down. All right, so like me, did you also try to unplug on the 4th of July only to wake up the morning after? I woke up the morning after, and I was laying there in bed, and my wife was looking at her phone, and she was like, something must have happened because all your people on the internet are mad. And I was like, oh, shit, what is it?
Well, I'm glad that we opened this streaming thing with the anecdote about how I took all the social media apps off my phone. So I was doing this thing late at night. And by late, I mean like 9:30 or 10 o'clock.
You're doing a thing on the 4th of July late at night.
I was getting ready to go to bed, and I was like, I'll just check in on MMA Twitter since I haven't been on there all day. I probably got some menchies I want to take care of.
What menchies?
Probably some people asking me some questions. So I was like, I'll just look real quick and then go to bed. And I logged on to see the news that Max Holloway had been pulled out of UFC 226. So
What were your feelings?
sigh, heavy sigh, sad shake of the head.
Did you feel like I knew the MMA gods wouldn't let us be this happy?
Well, I knew people were going to blame us immediately
That's
for
inevitable.
it, which of course they did, because we do host a weekly podcast where we talk about fights.
So obviously we caused whatever stuff is going on with Max Holloway.
Absolutely, because we had the audacity, the sheer guile to talk about Max Holloway on last week's Co-Main Event podcast.
So let's talk about what's going on actually with Max Holloway.
Yeah.
Because concussion-like symptoms, that does not sound good going into a fight. And especially like if I hadn't really been watching a whole lot of the Fight Week media stuff, but we had some guys on the ground, and after they went to the open workout, they were kind of like, I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was John Morgan on our staff who was like, after seeing the open workout, I think I might want to switch my pick because he did not look good at the open workout. And everybody thought like weight cut or something, right?
Yeah.
Like he's really lethargic from the weight cut. It's not going well. And this sounds so much more troubling, especially I don't know if you saw that interview where Michael Bisping points out to him like, hey, you look terrible. You sound terrible. He's slurring his words. He looks like he's going to fall asleep.
One eye is kind of drooping.
Yeah, that's super worrisome.
Yeah. And a couple of things, I guess, strike me about the Max Holloway situation. First, to have this guy who's like 26 years old and considered, at the very least, one of the bright young lights in the UFC. I don't know if he ever, like we said last week on the podcast, I don't think he's like going to turn around and become Conor McGregor all of a sudden, but he is the men's featherweight champion. He's really highly regarded. He's obviously got a ton of potential, and the sky is the limit for Max Holloway. So to have him pulled out of a fight in this manner and kind of suffering from these weird concussion-like symptoms that no one can really trace to an origin. It sounds like they don't know when it happened,
or they're not going to tell us.
They're not going to tell us
the origin.
It's certainly troubling. I just saw that someone had put a comment up on the live stream that all it says is tools.
Just says tools.
Which is a double meaning, considering what we were talking about before. And the run of play in terms of how this happened with Max Holloway is also somewhat strange, because there was the interview with Michael Bisping on, I assume, UFC Tonight, one of the Fox-controlled UFC properties. But Bisping asked him if he was sleepy, if he was feeling okay, and he didn't seem quite himself. But it doesn't seem like that was the catalyst. It seemed like later, maybe I'm wrong about this, but later his Max Holloway's team sort of realized that he was not right.
They said that they had taken him to the hospital earlier in the week, and then that he, after the open workouts, went back to the room and just fell asleep, and they had a hard time waking him up. And when they did wake him up, his speech was really slurred.
Yeah.
Here's what I wonder. Like, we talk about, like, do we know the origin or anything, or at least they're not, like, telling us if they know the origin. What's more worrisome? If nobody has any idea, if everybody's like, we can't think of anything that this could be traced to, or if he took a hard shot in sparring, a week or two ago, we know the origin, and it's definitely MMA-related head trauma, and yet we were going to try to get through it anyway, and then we just couldn't. And then it's basically your basic post-concussion symptom kind of stuff that could go on for a long time.
Well, I mean, doesn't it seem almost less worrying if they did something stupid, like they were sparring too hard, too close to the fight, and Holloway got tagged and like suffered a concussion? To me, that, you know, while that is not good, obviously, and you know, maybe worrying, and maybe it would be, if true, maybe an indictment of the training techniques, but at the same time, wouldn't it be way more worrisome if Max Holloway just like had this brain issue and no one could figure out why?
Yeah. Am I the only one who thought of TJ Grant? And my mind immediately went kind of like worst case scenario.
I didn't think of TJ Grant, but that obviously is the, you know, one of the worst case scenarios, and like probably the most high profile recent young fighter who had his career derailed by concussion issues. So like an obvious connection to make. I wonder, like, if this wasn't Max Holloway and he hadn't had this high profile interview with Bisping, and he hadn't not looked him, if he hadn't had an open workout to not look himself during,
say it's Max Griffin on the prelims,
and if his team was maybe not quite as keyed in, or maybe I don't know, needed the money, or just wasn't, you know, had more of an old school tough guy mentality,
or didn't want to face the UFC's wrath,
right? Would we even know about this, or would we just send a guy out there to fight already suffering from concussion symptoms? And I wonder how often that happens.
That may have happened.
Yeah, it may have happened in the past, and will continue to happen.
That's a scary one, because it's one thing to go in there where you're like, I don't know, man, I think this knee's going to need surgery. Let me see if I can get through this fight. Tell them I heard it in the fight, and then they'll pay for the surgery. And, you know, I'll do the best I can, even on a compromised knee. But if you go in there already slurring your words and you're barely awake before the fight starts, that can be really bad.
Yes.
Also, Aaron Dane says he agrees that he'd be much more worried if he couldn't figure out why he screwed up. Have we figured out why Aaron Dane is screwed up?
I think it's just basically being from Wisconsin.
Okay.
Is that
the Great Dane?
Yeah, that's
that'll do it.
One of the issues. Also, Randy Yap points out that we are 2 for 2 in jinxing this card.
So does this mean that we can start talking up fights that we don't want to see happen? And therefore,
it would be a good test.
Reshape the MMA universe in our image.
Yeah, it would be a good test. And I think we should test that out in a few minutes, maybe, and talk about Israel Adesanya versus Brad Tavares. Not that we don't want to see it, just it will be an interesting test.
How about if we? That's the one fight on this card we don't talk about. We talk about every other fight on the Ultimate Fighter.
Well, we've
been talking about the Ultimate Fighter as a series for a long time, and it's still right now alive.
That's true.
So
that's true. I'm going to just be real honest and say that if we start talking about other fights on this card, I anticipate quickly being out of my depth, since I assume that it will be stocked with contenders from Ultimate Fighter season 642, which I didn't take in much of this time around. But before we move on, let's talk about what happens now with Brian Ortega, with Max Holloway, and whether or not they will move to put those guys on the UFC 227 card. It sounds like Brian Ortega, I think smartly and within his rights, wants to wait for Max Holloway.
Okay.
And I'm going to put that in quotes, wait for Max Holloway, because stocking them on UFC 227 doesn't seem like all that much of a wait.
No, it doesn't. And that is, if you're so concerned about a post-concussion symptom or post-concussion syndrome kind of thing, it's not like you're going to be like, well, we'll wait a month and everything will be totally fine. Like, I mean, maybe it will, maybe it won't, but also, like, can he even go back and train right now? Like, I wouldn't think so. Like, you need more time to sort that out. Also, can we play a little game of I'm not surprised, motherfucker, around the response to Brian Ortega not accepting Jeremy Stevens as a backup opponent? Because this train pulls into the station right on time. Yeah. A guy's a #1 contender right there in this title shot through no fault of his own. It disappears. We want him to fight some other fight where he has really nothing to gain and just kind of keep the show going on kind of deal. He, within his rights, as you said, and wisely, is like, nope, not going to do that. This is my big career opportunity. I'm going to wait around for that. And already, Dana White's going to do the thing. Well, hey, he said he wouldn't take the fight. Like, we're not calling him out for refusing this fight. We're just saying, here's what happened. And if you would like to call him out amongst yourselves, here's the information you need to do that.
It seems like, so a bad thing happened in Max Holloway. being ruled out of this fight. Talk about Tito and Chuck 3.
Don't you do it. Don't you do it, Ryan Busatil.
A bad thing happened in Max Holloway having to be pulled from UFC 226, and it seems like in response to that, a bunch of people had a bunch of additional really bad ideas. Like, have Brian Ortega fight Jeremy Stevens. Have Jeremy Stevens fight Frankie Edgar for an interim title. I saw it just floated on.
Why is that interim title? It's just like, it's like when the doctor hits you on the knee and it's like something bad happened. Interim title. Like Dana White sits up straight in bed, just in a cold sweat and just yelling like interim title. And that's how like his family knows, like, oh, somebody must have pulled out hurt. Like it's the only fix he knows.
I mean, frankly, nobody loves the old man more than the two guys sitting here, right? Nobody loves Frankie Edgar more than the Co-Main Event podcast. And yet the idea of Frankie Edgar fighting Jeremy Stevens for an interim men's 145-pound title, I think collectively, as like the MMA sphere, the MMA bubble, all of our faces just glazed over at the thought, at the very thought of it. So I'm glad that it sounds like they're not actually going to do that, at least not in the immediate. I mean, all of this sort of hinges on the health of Max Holloway. And if it turns into a TJ Grant-style situation, which we hope it does not, knock on wood, you got to do something.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do something with that title, which I assume is create 3 or 4 more of them.
Yes, just a bunch more titles. Like getting a gremlin wet. Felix says, thoughts on DC's fall yesterday. Was I the only one furiously checking Twitter and Reddit this morning, hoping that the MMA gods hadn't claimed another sacrifice? I mean, how does this stuff keep happening to us in this sport?
I mean, especially with I was just about to say, well, you got a bunch of guys cutting weight. They're lightheaded. They're not in their right minds. DC's out here loving life.
Yeah.
Probably eating steaks for every meal of the day. I don't know, man. Hard to say. I mean, we do cover a sport that once had to cancel a heavyweight title fight because the champion, I believe Kevin Randleman was the champion at the time, slipped on a pile of junk in the back of the arena and hurt himself.
Knocked himself out, I believe, yeah. Also, we've had guys, get knocked out by the sauna. Other guys knocked out by the tripping over a cable. Daniel Cormier trips here, and he went down kind of hard, and when he got up, like, it did not look like just a completely harmless trip. And you got to be like, if I'm Daniel Cormier, I am so pissed off at that moment. Like, all the stuff you've been through, you had to train at AKA to get here, and you somehow came out in one piece after that, like injury factory, and then you come here, everything's going good, you made it all the way, you don't have to worry about the weight cut or anything, and then you're getting up out of your seat trying to get to the stare down at the press conference, and boom, you take a spill.
And also, I would assume if you're Stipe Miocic, your heart is in your throat a little bit there too, because you've probably already spent some of that money
yes,
buying 4-wheelers to drive to the mailbox with. Did you see this on Embedded this week? That it seems like Stipe Miocic lives in one of those, like a bedroom community outside Cleveland, where you have to you drive a 4-wheeler to go check the mail.
Okay. See, my parents now, they live in Lolo, which is a town a little bit outside of Missoula here, but like in like this kind of community a little bit out there, and everybody's mailboxes are, we're not going to make the mailman come around to everybody's house out there in the country. Mailbox right out there by the highway. And every time I go over there, it's like, hey, would you walk to the mailbox and get the stuff? Now my dad got a riding lawnmower, and I'm like, it's a countdown to when he gets the idea in his head and he can't restrain it anymore to ride that riding lawnmower down to the mailbox.
Yeah,
that's going to happen.
He's definitely going to do that. Do they have did you say they have a separate cart to ride to the mailbox, or do they walk?
They walk, or they ask me to walk.
At this point.
At this juncture, they walk, or wait until they're going to leave the house and then pull the car up and.
You know what? Your dad would probably appreciate the cart that Stipe Miocic has to drive down to the mailbox, which I believe is probably camo. I'm assuming that it's camo.
Does he do anything else with it?
Well, I don't know the guy's life. I'm only telling you what I saw on Embedded. He drives down to the mailbox in a cart.
Okay. All right.
Maybe he uses it to haul wood, too.
Brandon Boyd says these scones he bought taste like shit.
Oh, no. Brandon Boyd, you should have got Fran's brand old-fashioned donuts that I've not tried yet.
You got to drive past a Krispy Kreme to get from Jed's.
Not where I'm coming from.
How do you come?
Well, I came down Higgins.
No.
Because I had to drop my daughter off at my wife's work.
Okay. Fine.
These are good, actually.
Let's see. The Ronda Rousey Hall of Fame acceptance speech. I did not watch this. Did you watch this?
No.
Okay. It says, how does it rate on an awkward scale of 1 to 10? That makes me think I actually ought to watch it.
I'm sure it was awkward.
You know what I did watch, though, is Matt Serra getting in full mount on a drunk guy.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up. I hope that we talked about this during the streaming.
You know, I saw it is through one of my favorite Instagram accounts, Henzo Gracie's. And it seemed like Henzo Gracie was the cameraman here.
That seems right. That sounds right. And I saw it when Dana White put it on Twitter. So that's how you know it's hit the big time. I was watching and thinking, Matt Serra is a humanitarian. Like, Matt Serra is doing the least harmful thing that he could possibly do to a shirtless drunk guy. It looks like
who's vowing to fuck him up while the shirt is still covering his face.
It looks like they're at like a buffet, or like when you're in a Las Vegas casino, like one of those breakfast restaurants that are inside the casino you can just kind of walk into. It looks like they're in one of those. And Matt Serra has full mount and wrist control on this guy. And that's all he's doing.
Yeah.
He's just holding this guy, and I believe telling him over and over again to calm down.
Yeah. He's also like, the one point is where when the guy tells him that he's going to fuck him up, and Matt Serra laughs, but he seems like he's trying to stop himself from laughing. He doesn't seem like he's going out of his way to try to humiliate the guy. He seems like he's actually trying to restrain his natural impulse to laugh at this threat from this position. And then when the security guard comes up and Matt Serra is like, okay, yeah, you can take over. But he asks the guy, like, are you prepared to control him? Which is like, it's a reasonable question in this. He's just like making sure like he's turning this over to good hands.
Yeah.
Before he relinquishes his full mount.
Yeah, I'm just saying it could have been a lot uglier, and probably would have been a lot uglier if a lot of people who have the skills of Matt Serra were in charge of handling it. It just seemed like Matt Serra was like, well, I don't want to hurt this guy. He's clearly out of his mind drunk. I'm just going to sit on him. And as Kelton Ingram says on the comments, grind out a decision.
That's a unanimous decision for Matt Serra.
Also, if you are Renzo Gracie and you constantly are rolling around with a bunch of dudes like Matt Serra, you're just waiting for the opportunity to make that video, right? Like, we don't get to see them all, but I bet that video gets made pretty frequently.
Well, you'll recall that Renzo Gracie, at the age of 45, got arrested for rolling up on some bouncers at a club in the meatpacking district in Manhattan because they had been in a beef with one of his dudes. So Renzo Gracie will get his hands dirty in that event. But also, he's the one where part of his sentence was community service, and he had to go around and pick up trash with the trash men. And then he ends up posting a video to Instagram of him and the trash man in the garbage truck, both singing "Eye of the Tiger" as loud as I can, and they're like best friends for life. Like, you can't punish that guy. He enjoys life too much.
Yeah, he's going to turn it into a positive.
Lassie Jensen, I'm sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing that, asked, could someone bring me up to speed on how TJ Grant represents the worst case scenario concerning brain trauma? Maybe not the worst case scenario, since brain trauma could get pretty bad.
Right. The worst case scenario would be death.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. But TJ Grant was a rising lightweight contender, suffered a concussion, I believe in jiu-jitsu practice, someone's knee or something hit him in the head during jiu-jitsu. And he just couldn't shake the symptoms afterwards. And it was like, okay, TJ Grant's going to be out for a little while. And then a little while became a long while. And then he basically just retired and went to work as a miner. I think recently he's been coaching at a gym.
Yeah. He's coaching at the the premier MMA gym in Nova Scotia. I believe they're in somewhere in Canada.
Right. Yeah.
Somewhere north of the border. But for a while he was he had to go back to work in the mines. He was working in the potash mines in Saskatchewan, which seemed like not the coolest thing in the world, but a reminder that you can, because he was basically on the doorstep of a title shot. Hadn't he won 5 or 6 fights in a row? I think he might have even been training for a title shot when he got hurt, or at least they were thinking that would be next for him. And a couple of years later, he's back in the potash mines in Saskatchewan. I don't think he's doing that anymore. It sounds like he's, making or at least earning a living by coaching the MMA team at the gym there. which and makes you wonder if if he's back, if it's all, if his
he's still dreaming of glory.
Yeah, like we always make the analogy, and it's going to sound more negative than I want it to, but like the alcoholic who quits drinking but keeps working at the bar, like
that does sound negative. Yeah, it does not sound like a positive.
So yeah, I mean, I think we all wish TJ Grant well, and it's just interesting to think, what is in his long-term plans here.
Well, and now a comment from Kevin Brady. This is what happens when we can't bring the mining jobs back. Those dudes need to become BJJ coaches. #MAGA.
Yeah.
Here's a good one though from Andersberg. I can't decide who to cheer for, DC or Stipe. Please assist.
Who
gentlemen.
to cheer for? Well, I mean, you got two of the more liked characters in the mixed martial arts world.
Well, there's no way to really dislike either one of them. Like they're both just good dudes. Even if you're like, he's not my guy, I don't see how you could really hate either one of them.
It's hard not to cheer for Daniel Cormier here, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Are you saying just for underdog reasons?
Yeah, for underdog reasons, for like life story reasons, for even age reasons. Like one of the things that's kind of awesome about Daniel Cormier is that he has set this hard date for his retirement on his birthday next year. And so he doesn't have all the time in the world left to, improve upon his legacy or accomplish bigger things in mixed martial arts. And like we said on this week's podcast, it would really just like totally alter that guy's legacy in the sport if all of a sudden he jumps up and beats Stipe Miocic to win the heavyweight title. For me, it's hard not to cheer for that. And then like that's not even considering any of the stuff that might happen after, right? Because like if you either get, and again, like we said last week, I feel like it shortchanges this matchup a little bit to only speak about it in terms of a setup for either a John Jones or a Brock Lesnar fight. But if you think about what happens after, a Brock Lesnar fight or a John Jones fight, to me, is more interesting, at least in the lead up, if it's Daniel Cormier.
Okay, wait a minute. I agree with you to a point there for your dramatic donut eating pause. But Stipe Miocic versus John Jones.
Also a terrific fight.
And a fight that we haven't seen. And a fight that really feels like, okay, John Jones going in there to test himself against a real heavyweight,
right.
The real heavyweight at the time.
Right.
That to me is the fight.
Yeah, but don't you think there would still be time to do that later if things played out according to chalk?
Have you not been paying attention to what's going on in John Jones's life?
All right, solid.
Have you not been motherfuckers falling on at press conferences, getting taken out left and right, all kinds of weird shit? Let's not assume that any of us has any time here. We could all just be struck by lightning in this sport.
Everything is very uncertain.
Yes.
You're correct.
So I don't think we can make decisions based on that. But I feel like if it's Cormier Jones 3 for the heavyweight title, okay, you can sell it to me because of the history and the fact that it's the heavyweight title and like the narrative of like cruel John Jones is going up to heavyweight just to take away Daniel Cormier's new toy.
Yeah.
He found something else that could make him feel fulfilled, and John Jones is going to take that too.
Yeah.
Just because like he wants to completely destroy the man's legacy.
I guess I am assuming that one way or another we're going to get Jones versus Cormier 3. And if we're, assuming that Jones can make it back from suspension, but like, if we are going to do that, doesn't it seem like the best case scenario to do it for the heavyweight title?
Okay.
I mean, if we're going to do it a third time, we've already seen it twice at light heavyweight. Why not throw a little spice
What's
on
the money
top?
belt? Where's the money belt? Can we not get that?
The money belt is spoken for.
Okay.
I think Floyd Mayweather still has that probably hanging on the wall in his bathroom. One of his bathrooms. One of his 50 bathrooms. It just makes more sense to me. Like, we've seen Jones versus Cormier for the light heavyweight title twice. Let's do it for the heavyweight title, if that is a possibility.
Kevin Brady asked thoughts on Michael Chiesa's statement that Conor fucked him out of a title shot. I'm not sure I can disagree, but is there any value to making that statement? Does he think Dana will reward him for that? I'm thinking Michael Chiesa going to sue Conor McGregor. And making statements like that kind of helps lay the groundwork for, or at least gives us a preview of what might be the basis for asking for a huge cash payout.
Yeah.
And
Michael Chiesa supposed to fight at
who was he supposed to fight? I see. Ali Quinto was supposed to fight Paul Felder. Chiesa was supposed to fight.
Making me looking it up.
Pettis? Maybe the one that they're doing now. Is that? I don't know.
But Chiesa saying with one more win, he would have got a title shot.
Well, no, he's saying. I think he's saying that given the situation that happened with them looking when they had to go looking for a replacement in that fight when Max Holloway couldn't do it, and then they were like, okay, who's basically the top-ranked lightweight? And they settled on Al Iaquinta, but Michael Chiesa saying, I would have been the guy if I was still there. They would have come to me with that opportunity.
Oh, it was supposed to be Chiesa versus Pettis and Reginal versus Paul Felder. So you are correct.
Yeah. Yeah, if I were Michael Chiesa after that, I would sue Conor McGregor. And I would accept an out-of-court settlement. And it would probably be the biggest payday I had made for mixed martial arts.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people probably have grounds to sue Conor McGregor.
Yeah, including like several UFC employees.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, do we want to talk about Brad Tavares versus Israel Adesanya?
Sure. Why not?
It's going down here in the matter of hours, really.
Brad Tavares
About
versus
9 hours or so.
Versus the mean dog, Israel Adesanya.
The mean dog?
Sure, why not? He pees in the cage and marks his territory.
I mean, that's pretty just...
Didn't he make some dog references after the fight?
Okay. Is this the UFC doing... I mean, this matchup just in general. Is this the UFC doing the thing where it's like, all right, we got a guy who's exciting and fun. Now we're going to put him against the guy who is most likely to just suck all that fun right out of the room.
It's a different kind of matchup for Adesanya for sure. This will be his third UFC fight, right? He's won the first two.
The last one was not exactly, he didn't exactly wear him around like a button.
Right. So it does, it feels both simultaneously strange, but also kind of like classic old school UFC matchmaking to put Adesanya out there with a guy like Brad Tavares, who will be a stiff, stylistic test for him. Well, and maybe not the greatest idea if you were interested in being in the Israel Adesanya business.
Right, which I would think that you would want to be. But the thing is also, if he goes out there and does some crazy shit and knocks Brad Tavares out, and that'll be awesome.
Right,
but it's
pretty good.
But the payoff doesn't seem like it would be so huge in the eyes of most, because for most fans it would be like, okay, Brad Tavares, I know him, he's tough. He doesn't go away easily, but also really likes to just pin you up against the fence while he digs for a takedown for, 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you knock that guy out, like, hey, good win and everything for you, and the people who really know the sport and the other fighters will respect that win. But I don't feel like it would be a huge thing where it's like, well, all right, now Israel Adesanya has arrived and he is a superstar because he beat Brad Tavares in the main event of a tough finale.
Yeah, and much of that is due to who Brad Tavares is, right, in the UFC landscape. He's a guy who's 30 years old. He's been in the sport for 11 years. He's been in the UFC for the bulk of that time since 2010. And he's a guy that, he's kind of unsung in a lot of ways. I feel like Brad Tavares is a better fighter than his position in the landscape of the sport probably makes us think of him as.
Well, and I think style probably has something to do with that.
Yeah, he's a tough fight for anybody, really. Like a tough guy who's going to be a challenge for everybody. And he's not necessarily, obviously, the kind of guy that we expect is about to become middleweight champion or something like that. But he seems like the exact guy that you would not want to fight.
Yes.
If you were like a younger, up-and-coming kind of like lightning in a bottle star for the UFC. Brad Tavares seems like the guy, he's the picture of the guy you don't want to fight.
Yeah, well, especially if you're the up-and-coming, exciting striker whose grappling game is maybe still a work in progress.
Yeah.
Because that's the guy who, even just forgetting trying to go out there and win or lose, he's the guy who can make it into a not very fun fight either way.
Right. And do we feel like this is Brad Tavares' fight to lose? Kind of, I sort of do. Unless Israel Adesanya is making leaps and bounds in his mixed martial arts game, because, Brad Tavares who's, I believe, still an extreme couture fighter, trains at a big gym. He has a lot of quality training partners and coaches, and they are going to know that, if Brad Tavares uses his wrestling and his clinch game and basically turns this into a dirty up against the fence slog for Israel Adesanya, that all things point toward Brad Tavares probably winning this fight. Like Israel Adesanya is obviously explosive and can knock you out, and so there's a lot of danger in this fight for Brad Tavares also. But like in terms of being a well-rounded mixed martial artist, kind of like this seems like Brad Tavares' fight to me.
I'm surprised at the odds now that I look at it.
Yeah,
Brad Tavares minus. Well, I see one where Brad Tavares plus 100, Adesanya minus 110, but the rest of them are kind of like minus 115 for each of them. Like
it's a push on several of them.
I'm a little bit surprised by that because
I am also. Well, I guess and maybe it comes down to the age-old question: like if you're Brad Tavares and you're in this main event during Red, White, and Fight Week, albeit on the tough 754 finale. Do you fight smart or do you fight to be impressive?
Well,
because if you're Brad Tavares and you win another unanimous decision using your wrestling, you beat Israel Adesanya, that's a great win for you. Is it going to make Dana White sit up in his bed in the middle of the night and scream Brad Tavares?
I'm going to try to be impressive in the way that I take him down and elbow hole in his face.
I guess, yeah, if you like a first-round TKO would be pretty impressive.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not going to try to be impressive, like standing there,
you're not going to throw
punches with the guy,
spinning kicks and whatnot.
No,
against
not a single spinning kick. How about some of these other fights? I know that you're very excited.
Yeah,
about.
I'm super excited for Mike Trizano versus Joe Giannetti, and also for Jay Cuccinello against Brad Calais. Was this the Ultimate Fighter Italian American? Is that what the gimmick was here?
Wow.
Because you got Mike Trizano, you got Joe Giannetti, you got Jay Cuccinello. They sound like they could have grown up in the same neighborhood with my grandfather.
How about Alex Caceres?
Oh, there you go. No name, Alex Caceres.
Against Martin Bravo, who sounds like he ought to be a daredevil, a professional daredevil.
Professional daredevil, Martin Bravo, who also sounds like sort of a creative fighter kind of name.
Yeah. Roxanne Modafferi versus Barb Honchak. That's a real fight.
That's a good fight.
Yeah. Man.
There's a lot of people on this that don't have Wikipedia pages.
Well, you know how
most of the undercard.
You know how they'll do where you come off the Ultimate Fighter and you didn't.
That's why I'm saying I'm going to be out of my depth as soon as we get away from the main event here. Looks like only 3 people on the Fight Pass and Fox Sports 1 preliminary cards have Wikipedia pages for this tough 832 live finale. So the number keeps going up.
I see. Yeah, no, it's a fun
comedy.
It's a fun bit that you have. I guess this answers Brian Bustil's question. Have either one of you watched a single second of Tough this year? Nope.
Nope, not at all.
Not a single one.
Are we?
I'll find out who matters at the end. Like then people will tell
all
me.
The people that win the fights at this thing tonight or tomorrow.
Well,
tonight. It's tonight.
It's tonight.
It's Red, White, and Fight Week. I get confused.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the thing with Tough now is there's just so many people, and it's the actual process to get through it all is such a slog, and you don't really know who matters until after the finale anyway. So then I just feel like fill me in at the end.
Aaron Dane has a question about the Old Man in the Sea.
Yes,
is that next Old Man in the Sea chapter coming out?
Could come out at any time. I'm pretty much done with the next chapter, so.
So it's ready to go. It's
how about next week? Yeah.
Do you think everybody knows that they only have 3 days left to buy Dundasso t-shirts?
Oh God, I don't know if they know that.
We went to publication. We were in production. We sold 12 shirts. So
that's disappointing.
If you order now, you will get your shirt. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to sit there in suspense wondering if we're going to go to production. We are.
You know what you're doing right now?
We're in the
This
boat.
is like when it's on the UFC Fight Pass stream and they're trying to sell UFC Fight Pass to you. The people watching this, they've already made a decision one way or another about the Dundasso shirts.
You think?
Yeah.
You think there's not a lot of casual observers right now?
There's not a whole lot of people going like, Dundasso shirts? What's that? Tell me more.
I don't know. Maybe Randy Yap maybe doesn't have one. You know?
Aaron Dane says he's got a tank top coming.
There you go. Sun's out, guns out. Absolutely.
Okay, Tracy Dickinson says, so even with the Max Bryan fight being pulled, first name basis, Tracy's obviously very good friends with Max Holloway and Brian Ortega, this card is still really stacked. It's my 40th birthday tomorrow. And
happy birthday.
Seeing as how I've been a huge UFC fan for so many years, do you think Dana White heard about this and planned this card in my honor?
Yes.
Please think carefully about your answer, as I'm already feeling vulnerable about turning 40. He planned the card with me in mind, right? And on a non-selfish note, how are you feeling about how the card stacks up for the cards this year, even without that fight? Thanks, Tracy. I agree. It's easy for us to get hung up talking about what we're missing out on because we were really excited about that fight. But even when you take that away, it still looks stronger on paper than pretty much anything we've seen from the UFC this year, right?
I mean, yeah, you cheat up Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis into a co-main event slot, and with
throw Paul Felder versus Mike Perry up there.
That's onto the main card now. But like, if you can imagine a scenario,
let's see,
where Max Holloway versus Brian Ortega was never on this card, and your headliner is Stipe Miocic against Daniel Cormier, and your co-main is Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis, we all still would have been getting in a big group to jump up and high-five each other, right? Like, that's still
freeze frame at the end of the 80s movie.
Yeah, that's still pretty awesome. So this is still, like, might turn out to be the best. It's clearly the best card of, like, the first half of 2018, even though we're a little beyond the first half. And like, depending on how things go, could turn out to be the best card of the year. Like, I kind of think the final quarter of this year might be just fucking stacked for the UFC, depending on how some dominoes fall for them. But like, if that happens, you're going to see, I think, cool stuff by the end of the year. But, you know, all of that is still sort of up in the air. It's not out of the question that UFC 226 is going to be the high watermark of the year, and obviously thrown to celebrate Tracy Dickinson's birthday.
Yeah, so I was going to say, since you recently turned 40 and you celebrated at a water park, and now you're a few months into it.
My wife just turned 40 2 weeks ago.
Right. Well, I mean, do you have any useful advice for Tracy Dickinson feeling vulnerable heading into the big 4-0?
I do. Stretch
it out.
Your Achilles tendons a lot.
Achilles tendon. That's specific. That's very specific.
Well, I know several people that turned 40 and then immediately blew out their Achilles.
Huh.
So stretch those Achilles tendons.
This is weird. This is not the
advice. Don't walk around all the
expected.
time just thinking about your Achilles tendons like I do. Just waiting for one of them to snap like a guitar string, because that's what I think about a lot.
Wow. Okay, that took a turn.
Are we really going to talk about Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell 3 becoming a reality? Because they were doing a stare down. We're one stare down in to the lead up to the trilogy fight between Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz on, I believe, the red carpet at the UFC Hall of Fame induction ceremony was where we got the stare down, at which Tito Ortiz appeared to be wearing some silver shoes with spikes all over them.
Pretty sweet chin strap beard as well.
You tweeted that, like, seeing the wide mohawk of Chuck Liddell square off with the chin strap beard of Tito Ortiz was like one sign of how far past the expiration date this fight is.
Yeah. By the way, Michael Chiesa coming in overweight.
Oh.
Says it's his final fight at 155. Quote, "It's a wrap." So maybe it didn't cost him the title shot if you're not really a lightweight anymore.
Yeah, if you're planning to sue Conor McGregor on the grounds that you were about to get a lightweight title shot, decamping for welterweight immediately seems like
he's a big dude too.
Something I would want to know if I were opposing counsel.
If you ever stood next to Michael Chiesa, it is tough to imagine how that guy makes 155. But yeah, the Tito Ortiz. I finished Tito Ortiz's book this week.
Okay.
I have a lot of thoughts that I will save for the next a week from today, the book club episode. But reading it now, with the benefit of hindsight, because it was written, I think, when he was in his early 30s, and he's still with Jenna Jameson, and he is in the back, like the epilogue basically is him being like, talks have broken down with the UFC. I don't know where my future is headed.
Oh, but we do.
Yes, we do. We have the dramatic irony here. We know. But it really, it's interesting to see, like, a fighter at that point in his career, like, lay out what he thinks his future is going to be. Like with any of us, like, if any of us sit there and be like, here's what I think my future is going to be, you're probably going to be wrong. You're probably not going to get all that right.
Yeah.
And he definitely does not get all that right. But it is interesting to see, like, how if you had gone back and told that Tito Ortiz, all right, in your early 40s, you and Chuck will be doing it again, brother, for Oscar De La Hoya's promotion. And apparently, according to what Tito told my colleague Mike Bone, who you refer to as Mike Bone,
Bad to the bone.
He claims that he's not getting, like, a base pay for this, that it's all ticket sales and pay-per-view sales.
I saw that, which is who's his manager?
I think it's Tito Ortiz.
Tito Ortiz is managing Tito Ortiz at this point. Doesn't seem like the greatest deal to me. Because I bet I can tell you one thing. I bet Chuck Liddell's getting a base salary.
He told TMZ he's getting a lot of money for it. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, would early 30s Tito Ortiz be super like inconsolable to learn that they're going to be still here 10 years from now, still fighting the same guys, still talking the same shit?
No.
I don't know.
He probably would have been okay with it.
I think he probably been like, all right.
And I know Chuck Liddell would be okay with it. I know we want to save most of this for the book club episode, but I wanted to say one more thing about Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz biographies, and then maybe talk for a minute about Golden Boy getting into the MMA business, because that seems potentially like kind of a big deal. First of all, how much does the Tito Ortiz autobiography concern itself with Chuck Liddell? Because I'm 50% of the way into the Chuck Liddell autobiography, and Tito Ortiz has not been mentioned at all.
He comes up mainly with the way Tito likes to frame the relationship is that he and Chuck were kind of friends and training partners. And then it seemed like they were inevitably going to fight. And Tito Ortiz wanted to make sure that they were both getting as much money as they could for that fight. Whereas Chuck was just kind of like, hey, whatever you want, Dana, I'll do whatever you want. And he kind of frames it as like, Chuck was too willing to be a UFC yes man. And Tito Ortiz was the guy fighting for the fighters' rights and realizing, hey, these people are making a bunch of money off of us. We should band together to make sure we get our share. And Chuck was the kind of guy to being like, I think I'm just going to win the fight, so I don't really, I'll worry about that later. Kind of making it seem like Chuck was a little bit of a sellout on the
So
fighters'
Tito Ortiz
issues.
is painting himself as the man of the people, the revolutionary in this situation who's trying to.
It will not shock you to learn, I think, that Tito Ortiz paints himself as a brilliant businessman and strategist when it comes to his MMA career.
You know, although I'm not done with the Chuck Liddell book, like the way it's written, like there's a lot of stuff in it that makes you think like, okay, this guy's boys with the guy who owns the UFC. Like there's a lot of stuff in it that's just sort of like casually mentioning like, well, I didn't go out there and try to wrestle anybody. Like I went out there and tried to knock people out because I wanted them to invite me back and all this stuff. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to compare notes about the two biographies, which we will do a week from today. So if you've read them or if you haven't, get your thoughts in to us via the Co-Main Event Podcast email so we can read them during the book club episode. And don't forget that the best two are going to get autographed Chuck Liddell bobbleheads mailed to them in the mail. What do you think about Golden Boy before we move on?
Okay.
Golden Boy getting into the MMA business. Kind of weird. I think that their first fight is Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz 3, although I guess it makes a certain kind of sense. And do we know at all what the vision is here, like for some kind of Golden Boy MMA brand? See,
they said that the fight's going to be in a cage, not a ring, which tells me right away, like, any thoughts that we might have had that you're going to do like a crossover event where you have MMA and boxing.
That's what I was wondering.
You're probably not going to do that if you're going to have the cage set up. There's also the question of like that everybody has faced. Who the hell else do you get right now if you're trying to fill out the undercard for this? Because it's harder to sell an MMA crowd on like, okay, just this one fight, especially if it's a one fight between two dudes who are like 93 combined years of age. So you got to have at least a little something else to offer. And who do you even get? Like who's not under contract somewhere else? It's got to be kind of like the same old names that have kind of outlived their athletic usefulness, but are still around that you'll see pop up on every kind of like weird thing. Like will Rico Rodriguez make an appearance? Maybe.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I also can't help but feel like shades of affliction going on a little bit when you just try to pop up and be like, okay, we're putting on a MMA pay-per-view and that will be our path to success, because how often does the first pay-per-view do good enough numbers to really justify it?
I wonder what kind of numbers Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell 3 will do, because it's obviously kind of a joke of a fight, but hashtag would watch. Where we are going to watch it, right?
Yeah. Randy Yap says over or under 800,000 buys for UFC 226. Under. And I don't think that's necessarily a statement of the quality of the card so much as that just seems to be the era, the pay-per-view era we're living in.
Yeah.
Like, I think kind of gone maybe are the days of the like near but not quite over 1 million UFC pay-per-view. Like, you're either doing a huge blockbuster event where you sail past 1 million, or you're scraping to get to 400,000 or 500,000 buys. It just doesn't. It seems like it's such a feast or famine business right now. But I think the illegal live streams for this event will probably be doing some pretty strong numbers, though.
Yeah. Well, I feel like if UFC 226 gets to 500,000, that will be.
Yeah, I would count that as success.
That's a home run right there.
Ryan Busatil asks, while you guys are in an advice-giving mood, advice for me who will be a first-time dad any day now.
Yeah, wow.
First of all,
big life changes.
My advice, especially if it's any day now, go to a movie.
Yes.
Go to a movie today. Right now, it doesn't matter what you see. It doesn't matter if you even want to go to a movie. But soon, that will be kind of like an unthinkable luxury, especially for like the first few months. Not only because you don't really have the time when you're dealing with a baby, but like even when you do get like a babysitter and you get some time away, you're like the first year of my first daughter being born, my wife and I every once in a while would be like, okay, we're getting a babysitter, we're going to a movie, and we would get out of the house, we'd go like to dinner or something, and then we'd both sit there and be like, okay, do we really want to spend this precious time sitting there watching a movie when we could be doing like something else fun and like a little bit more like engaging, and because it just feels like the clock is ticking on you, and therefore that's how you go the first couple of years where you're like, I have not seen any movies until they get to the red box or they're on HBO or something. So go to a movie now. Also, go day drinking or something that's completely irresponsible.
Yeah. My advice would be to stop at 2 kids. I don't know what the Busatil family plan is, but once you get above 2 kids, you're outnumbered. And it's, I have 3 kids now, which is 33.3% repeating more kids than 2. And it's a big jump. You go from like always having one in your hand, but having sort of a manageable situation on your hands, to just total chaos all the time. And in fact, some friends of mine that have more kids than that have told me that going from 2 to 3 is the worst. And then after that, it's like diminishing. You go from 3 to 4, it's not as big.
You don't even notice. You're like,
that's what they said.
Another kid showed up?
Everything is already just in complete chaos all the time. So it's not that big of a deal to go from 3 to 4 kids. But in terms of first-time fatherhood, it's like, I feel like the thing that is often undersold, especially to dudes, about having a kid is that it's pretty fun. Like, it's hard, it's scary, but it's also like, it's enjoyable. It's fun. You get to watch your child turn into a human in all of the ways that matter, a little bit at a time. So, yeah, it's enjoyable. It's an enjoyable experience.
Also, I would say one thing I would look up as reading before the day of the child's birth is our former colleague and former boss to both of us at various times, Ben Goldstein from Cage Potato. He wrote a thing, I think it was on like a Medium post, about why all the people who tell you like the day my child was born was the happiest day of my life, why it's kind of bullshit, and why you should not feel like weird if you do not have that sensation. Because while the day the child is born is definitely a memorable day, it's also kind of like weird and chaotic and tough to remember afterwards. And, I think it took a while for me to kind of appreciate, like, okay, here are the fun things about parenting and about like having this, tiny person who really relies on you and who you have this close bond with. But that definitely didn't happen, the day she was born, or even like in the first 6 months, when there were times where you're just like up in the middle of the night trying to get a baby to stop crying. And you're like, what the hell did I do to my life? So there will be those dark days, but don't fear, because there's light at the end of the tunnel. You can kind of keep going through it. Tracy
Dickinson says she's going to spend the rest of the Brunch of Champions stretching out her Achilles, which...
You're really going to freak out everybody with this Achilles stuff.
No, you just got to do a little maintenance, man. That's what it's all about. Do a little maintenance, okay. A little upkeep on the bod. Keep it rolling.
Sunny Weathers says, finally broke down and read the Fletch novels. I'm 6 deep and can't stop. You're right, though. The first is the best in your, so far, which is true. But yeah, there's a formula to those Fletch novels. And while I enjoy it, by the time I finish reading each one, I feel like I've eaten a whole bag of Cheetos. And I'm just like, I had the sensation of eating, but I'm not full. I wonder what I've been doing, but I did enjoy it while it was happening. I don't know. One of my weird favorites that I've read when I got sucked into the series was Carioca Fletch, where he goes to Rio, really living it up down in Brazil.
Brandon Boyd says that we forgot to mention that everyone in your household will constantly be sick after having a child.
True.
That's 100% true.
Yeah, especially when they're in like daycare and preschool and it's just a petri dish. Look, the Great Dane has posted a link to Ben Goldstein's Medium post about the day his child was born. Also, Brandon Boyd comments, if Tito wasn't a fighter, he would be traveling the country looking for investors for a strip club / car wash. Is that one business? A strip club / car wash?
I mean, it depends on the vision that you have and how big you are able to dream.
So, like, I drop off my car, I go in the strip club. While I'm inside, my car gets washed. Is that what we're thinking about?
Or is it a strip club that you drive through and your car gets washed as you're going through?
Man, I don't even want to know what the interview process is like for the people who want to work at this strip club where they also have to wash cars, because it sounds like the worst job I've ever heard of.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out that this is the first time I've ever noticed that you have a PlayStation 2 game up there called Strike Force.
Strike Force Bowling.
Yeah, it's not an MMA game.
Nope.
Bowling game.
Strike Force is 2 different words.
Strike Force. Bowling. Good game?
I don't recall.
I mean, how good could a bowling game actually be?
Yeah, I mean, at best, you're like, yeah, this is recognizable as the game I know as bowling.
Yeah. I mean, unless you bowl and also fight Bobby Volkers, because it's Strike Force.
Yeah. You fight him on a challenger show.
Yeah. Bobby Volkers reference on today's Brunch of Champions.
All right. Should we, we're about an hour in here. We want to think about wrapping this bad boy up. Last thoughts.
Wait, is that a side-by-side comparison of Daniel Cormier light heavyweight and Daniel Cormier heavyweight?
Yeah.
He looks healthier as a heavyweight.
Happier.
Yep.
Little jigglier.
Yep.
But hey, it's about how you feel in your own skin,
That's right. It's how comfortable you are. He really, now that we see them two side by side, that's a skeletal Daniel Cormier.
Yeah, he's got that Uriah Faber face, the way that Uriah Faber used to get that like really Skeletor looking face on weigh-in day. Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, but it sounds like when we see Daniel Cormier coming out and looking like the old Strike Force bowling ball Daniel Cormier.
Yeah,
like. What if he goes out there, say he absolutely runs through Stipe Miocic, and he's just like, I feel fantastic. I can go another 5 years like this. Do we also wonder, like, hey, did he waste some time going down to light heavyweight? Like, he was never a light heavyweight. Maybe he should have been here all along.
I mean, he's the champion at this point, so I don't know how big of a waste we could call it. He's only
on a technicality.
Beat everybody but John Jones. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe do you think things would have been better for him if he just stayed at heavyweight?
Well,
it's hard to say things didn't go well for him at 205 though either.
Yeah, in retrospect, the concern that like, hey, I want to make sure the path is clear for my buddy Cain Velasquez, maybe not as big like an actual practical concern as he thought it would be.
Looks like DC weighed in at 246. That is bigger than I thought he would be.
A healthy 246.
A healthy 246.
Hydrated, happy, rested.
Don't you think that like it's an essential part of Daniel Cormier that he plans to walk away on his birthday next year? And Francis Ngannou, by the way, knows where they keep the weights in the gym.
Talk about looking good, getting off the bus. Francis Ngannou here at just a svelte and chiseled 253.
Yeah, he is the bus. Look at that. I feel like it's a good test of the MMA retirement to see what happens to Daniel Cormier. Because if Daniel Cormier can't walk away when he says he's going to, then we'll know how big a trouble everyone's in.
Yeah, especially because like not only that he should have made enough money to not have to worry about that too much, But also that he should have a commentary gig immediately if he wants it. No reason you wouldn't want Daniel Cormier kind of representing your company out there, and he can do that job. We've seen it. So like there should be enough other like avenues for him. Like he should be the guy who has laid out like the perfect blueprint for how to transition from active fighter to, you know, retired, doing the retired fighter guy stuff. And yeah, you're right. If it doesn't work out, man, that's going to be kind of grim.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, your dude Alexander Volkov weighing in as a potential backup, just because, hey man, cords and shit out here.
People falling down,
yeah,
tripping and whatnot.
Yeah. All right. You got anything else you want to say here?
I'm gonna eat another donut. I know that.
Okay.
Might wait till we go off the air.
All right.
What about you? What do you got to say that's so great? Did you save a gem for the end?
I wish I had. I really wish I had.
Yeah.
Also, okay, so next week we're doing our book club.
Yep. Podcast Monday, book club Friday. Anything else?
We'll drop a new chapter of The Old Man in the Sea next week.
Old Man in the Sea going to come out. We'll figure some stuff out.
We will. We will figure some stuff out.
Thanks for joining us at Brunch of Champions, you guys. I hope that you had as much fun as we did.
Bye. We'll see you later. I'm going to turn it off now.
Yeah, go ahead and turn it off.
I'm going to find the button to turn it off.
Is it off yet?